Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to tell you a story about a father, a son, and a simple habit that looked small from the outside but carried the power to reshape an entire life. This is not a story about talent, luck, or sudden success. It is a story about discipline, about waking up at 5 a.m. every morning, and about how one man's quiet consistency became the turning point in his son's destiny. When I first heard about this family, the son was known as the boy who could never finish anything. He started projects with excitement but abandoned them halfway. His school grades were average, his room was always messy, and his days were filled with distractions. Late nights with his phone led to late mornings, rushed breakfasts, and a constant feeling of being behind. He wasn't lazy in the traditional sense. He had dreams. He talked about becoming successful, traveling the world, and making his parents proud. But dreams without structure kept slipping through his fingers like sand. His father, on the other hand, was a man of routines. For as long as anyone could remember, he woke up at exactly 5 a.m. Not 5:10. Not 5:30. Exactly 5 a.m. The alarm would ring once, and he would sit up immediately. No snoozing. No bargaining. He would stretch, wash his face, and begin his morning with quiet focus. Sometimes he exercised. Sometimes he read. Sometimes he simply sat with a notebook, planning his day. To the son, this habit seemed extreme and unnecessary. He often wondered why anyone would willingly leave a warm bed so early. Every morning, as the father moved through the house, he would gently knock on his son's door. Not to shout. Not to scold. Just a soft knock and a calm voice saying, "It's 5 a.m. A new day is waiting." Most mornings, the son groaned, turned over, and pulled the blanket over his head. The father never argued. He simply replied, "All right. I'll see you when you wake up," and continued his routine. This pattern repeated for months. The son assumed his father would eventually give up. But discipline, when it is real, does not depend on immediate results. The father kept knocking. Every single day. Rain or shine. Weekday or weekend. His consistency was like a quiet drumbeat in the background of the house. One evening, after a particularly frustrating day at school where the son felt embarrassed by his performance, he came home angry and discouraged. He saw his father calmly preparing for the next day, setting out clothes, organizing papers, and reviewing a small to-do list. Something about that calm preparation stood in sharp contrast to the chaos in his own mind. For the first time, the son asked, "Why do you wake up so early every day? Doesn't it get tiring?" The father smiled and said, "Of course it gets tiring. Discipline is not about doing what feels easy. It's about doing what moves you closer to the life you want. When I wake up at 5 a.m., I'm telling myself that my goals matter more than my comfort." Those words stayed with the son that night. As he lay in bed scrolling through his phone, he kept thinking about comfort versus goals. He realized that most of his choices were built around what felt comfortable in the moment. Sleeping in felt good. Avoiding difficult tasks felt safe. But those choices were slowly building a future he didn't want. The next morning, when the familiar knock came at 5 a.m., the son's first instinct was to ignore it. His bed was warm, and his eyes felt heavy. But then he remembered his father's words. With a deep sigh, he pushed the blanket aside and sat up. His body protested. His mind screamed to go back to sleep. Yet he stood up anyway. When he walked into the kitchen, his father looked surprised but didn't make a big deal out of it. He simply handed his son a glass of water and said, "Good morning." They sat together in silence for a few minutes. The house was quiet. The world outside was still dark. There was a strange peace in that early hour that the son had never experienced before. The first few days were brutal. The son felt exhausted and irritable. He struggled to keep his eyes open during his morning reading sessions. His workouts were clumsy and weak. More than once, he considered quitting. But each time he looked at his father, who continued his routine with steady focus, he felt a small spark of determination. If his father could do this every day for years, surely he could try for a few weeks. Gradually, something began to change. The son started falling asleep earlier at night. His mornings became less painful and more purposeful. He used the quiet hours to review his schoolwork, set daily goals, and exercise. By the time the rest of the world woke up, he had already accomplished several meaningful tasks. This early momentum spilled into the rest of his day. At school, he felt more alert and prepared. Assignments that once felt overwhelming became manageable because he had already reviewed them in the morning. His confidence grew with each small victory. Teachers noticed his improvement. Friends commented on his increased energy. But the most important change was happening internally. The son was learning that discipline was not a punishment. It was a form of self-respect. Each 5 a.m. wake-up was a promise kept to himself. Each completed task was evidence that he was capable of more than he had believed. There were setbacks, of course. Some mornings he overslept. Some nights he stayed up too late and paid the price the next day. During stressful periods, the temptation to abandon the routine returned. But his father never criticized him. Instead, he would say, "Discipline is like a muscle. Missing one day doesn't make you weak. Giving up entirely does. Just start again tomorrow." Those simple words removed the fear of failure. The son realized that perfection was not required. Consistency was. He stopped seeing mistakes as proof that he couldn't succeed and started seeing them as part of the learning process. As months passed, the 5 a.m. habit became a natural part of his identity. He was no longer the boy who couldn't finish anything. He was someone who showed up, even when it was hard. His grades improved significantly. He joined extracurricular activities and managed his time effectively. More importantly, he developed a sense of control over his life. One early morning, as they sat together watching the sunrise, the son turned to his father and said, "I think I understand now. Waking up at 5 a.m. isn't really about the time, is it?" The father smiled and replied, "You're right. It's about choosing growth over comfort. The time is just a tool." That realization marked a deeper transformation. The son began applying the same principle to other areas of his life. He chose challenging books over mindless scrolling. He practiced skills even when progress felt slow. He had difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. Each choice was a small vote for the person he wanted to become. Years later, when the son looked back on his journey, he didn't remember a single dramatic turning point. There was no sudden breakthrough or overnight success. Instead, he saw a long chain of ordinary mornings, each beginning with a quiet knock at 5 a.m. Those mornings had built the foundation for everything that followed. He understood that his father's greatest gift was not money or advice. It was an example. By living his discipline every day, the father had shown his son what was possible. He had demonstrated that success is often hidden inside simple, repeatable actions. As the son stepped into adulthood, he carried the 5 a.m. habit with him. In college and later in his career, those early hours remained his sanctuary. They were a time for planning, learning, and reflection. While others rushed into their days feeling unprepared, he moved forward with clarity and intention. People often asked him about his secret. They expected to hear about complex strategies or special opportunities. Instead, he would smile and say, "It started with waking up at 5 a.m. with my father." Some laughed, thinking he was joking. But those who listened closely understood the deeper message. The real secret was not the hour on the clock. It was the mindset that came with it. It was the willingness to do difficult things consistently. It was the understanding that small daily actions accumulate into extraordinary results over time. The son eventually realized something else as well. His father's discipline was an act of love. Every early knock on the door was an invitation to step into a better future. The father never forced him. He simply created an opportunity and trusted his son to choose it. That trust strengthened their relationship. Their shared mornings became moments of connection. They talked about goals, fears, and dreams. They supported each other through challenges. The discipline that began as a personal habit evolved into a bond that shaped both their lives. When the father grew older and his steps slowed, the son took on the role of encouragement. He would prepare their morning space, brew coffee, and ensure they still met at 5 a.m. Those quiet hours became a tribute to the years of guidance he had received. In reflecting on his journey, the son understood that destiny is rarely changed by grand gestures. It is shaped by the routines we choose and the standards we set for ourselves. The 5 a.m. secret was a reminder that every day offers a chance to align our actions with our aspirations. He shared his story not to promote a specific schedule but to highlight a universal truth. Discipline is a bridge between dreams and reality. Whether it begins at 5 a.m. or any other hour, the key is to start and to continue, even when motivation fades. As you listen to this story, imagine your own quiet knock each morning. It may not come from a parent. It may come from your own inner voice, urging you to rise and take a step toward your goals. The choice to answer that call is yours. The son's life did not become perfect. He still faced obstacles, disappointments, and moments of doubt. But he approached them with resilience built from years of disciplined practice. He knew that progress was possible as long as he kept showing up. In the end, the father's simple habit created a ripple effect that extended far beyond early mornings. It instilled values of commitment, patience, and self-belief. It taught the son that destiny is not a fixed destination but a path shaped by daily decisions. So when people admire his achievements and ask how he changed his life, he thinks back to a dark, quiet house, a gentle knock on a bedroom door, and a man who chose discipline every single day. He remembers the first time he pushed aside his blanket and stood up despite the comfort of sleep. That small act of courage was the beginning of everything. And that is the heart of this story. Your future is not determined by one dramatic moment. It is built in the quiet hours when no one is watching, when you decide whether to stay comfortable or to grow. The 5 a.m. secret is simply a symbol of that choice. Each morning is an invitation. Each decision is a brick in the structure of your life. With patience and discipline, those bricks form a foundation strong enough to support your biggest dreams. The father understood this. The son learned it. And now the lesson is passed on to anyone willing to listen and act. If there is one message to carry forward, it is this: greatness often begins with a single, consistent habit. Protect that habit. Nurture it. Let it guide you through the days when motivation is low and the path seems unclear. Over time, you will look back and see how those small beginnings shaped a destiny you once thought was out of reach. And somewhere in those early hours, as the world sleeps and you rise to meet your goals, you may feel a quiet gratitude for the discipline that carries you forward. Just like the son, you will understand that the secret was never hidden. It was waiting in the simple decision to wake up and begin.